I was very interested to see how Paladin would fare in this tournament. And I think even though it's not, you can't really say it's dominated it in any way, having this many Paladins in the top cut still thinks it's done a lot better than a lot of players would assume so, right? I think no one or not many people were really planning Paladin to be that great. And there we are going to have a mirror to kick off our game number one again. Two very different stories from two very different players here. Honestly, from Batu, we don't know too much about him. We can't find out that much about him overall. Whereas Alutemu, of course, a long-standing Asia-Pacific Grandmaster. And also, even before Grandmasters, was a well-known Asia-Pacific player before then, too.
Yeah, and back to the Paladins, though, because I'm just going to... We know Alutemu is really good. In fact, at the start of the year, we were... talking in terms of him going to the World Championships, I think many of us thought he has a very good chance in APAC, and he actually struggled mightily. But Batu, we can find nothing. We can find someone with the same name who's a kickboxing instructor, but we don't think it's him. So, which is good. I wouldn't like to be beating somebody in the quarterfinals with that pedigree. But we're going to have to just see how he does from here on in. If he wins it, we'll learn a lot about him.
Yeah, just taking a very quick look at the Paladin lists. There are some minor differences, of course. Alutemu rocking the air raids in his list, whereas Batu is bringing the much more reliable and consistent the McGurgle in there as well, which we see from the most general Paladin list. But overall, we're going to see some very, very similar decks go up against each other. But Alutemu already having the advantage here, Lorinda, with the Aldor Attendant on one.
Has the advantage with having the outdoor on one, but he has the disadvantage with having the coin. So every turn apart from one turn, Batu's going to do something more powerful than Alutemu does. And so that attendant just levels it up to some degree.
That's it, right? I agree with your comment in general, and that is normally the case. But if you have the minion first and your opponent doesn't, outside of rune turns, it doesn't matter if they have more mana because they don't have that board base to work with, whereas Paladin, very much is reliant on having the minions on board.
Yeah, and the air raid has kind of doubled down on that early start as well. Now, 3 minions on the board. No consecration in either of these decks. Fairly obviously, but we have to point that out. It does appear in some decks, usually in the pure version. So, Alutemu... Really?
So sorry about that. I was actually muted then. Yeah, no. I cast earlier on this weekend where there was a Reno in the Tempo Mage, so that was a big crazy deal. So I wouldn't put any card to be too unexpected in these deck lists. But so far, Alutemu is holding on to this board, even with that McGurgle in the way.
Yeah, and that air raid has done some very, very good work here. Just keeping 1 or 2 minions available is so huge, just so you can get all your buffs landed. You can see at the moment Batu's having a real tough time landing his buffs because he's got to play a minion just to have a minion. Meanwhile, Alutemu is starting each turn with minions on board, so he's got so many more targets. And look, he's just gone, here's 5 minions. I'm just going to hit you with them, and next turn I'm going to buff them all up and hit you really hard.
This matchup really reminds me of old school Zoo, where generally you're very aggressively fighting for the board, but at some point, your opponent potentially having one big minion still doesn't outweigh you having multiple attacks, right? And you being able to keep up. So even though there are some worlds in which you could say, oh, well, Alutemu has so many minions, he could have actually just traded the McGurgle away and kept the board clean so there wasn't any buffs coming down. But as you can see, even if there was a buff this turn, it means that there's probably not minion development as well. So then, okay, you get to hit one of these 1/1s this turn, and then Alutemu gets his turn all over again. So I actually quite like that, the McGurgle. But here is the first real test, I think, for Alutemu, who is facing down this Allura.
Yeah, and how does he want to treat it, and how does he feel it's going to go? Like, it still reminds me a bit, you use the Zoo analogy. I was thinking of mid-range Hunter mirrors, where your opponent played a Savannah High main, and you just ignored it if you were ahead. Now, Allura's a little bit scarier than that. You don't want to ignore it because the value she gets, if she gets that spell burst off, is so huge. But when the first big minion is stuck from Batu, which he's going to have to do to fight back in this game, Alutemu may just choose to ignore it, depending on what it is.
I hope you like my invention.
Either way, I do like just Alutemu going for this card draw here. And it's tough, because Spellburst's still there. I think there is some value in trading, especially now that he has the Lady Liadrin. He can do like the double trade to get the buff like he's going to do now, which is actually pretty nice. This looks kind of weird because the buffs are like overkilling the minion, and the minion and his 1/3 dies anyway. But what this is doing is stacking up the Librams so that Liadrin coming up soon from Alutemu is going to basically fill his hand up. It's actually pretty huge.
Yeah, it's monstrous, and just from that turn 1, everything has snowballed. And Batu so far just hasn't drawn his cheap stuff, and his big stuff's just getting chewed up because Alutemu is making that happen. He's just keeping the tempo on his side.
Yeah, always just staying with those minions on board. And again, here comes the Libram of Wisdom from Batu, but once more, because Alutemu has so many minions, he can trade, play the Libram, trade, play the Libram, and keep getting value of this +1/+1 every single turn. It's really huge.
Do you think it's a big deal as well, just looking at the players, that Alutemu's played, season after season of Grand Masters, and Batu's really on stream for the 2nd or 3rd time ever, and they've all been this weekend? Do you think that's a big deal for these players, like just to have it so easy?
I think so, yeah. I don't know. That's my answer, Lorinda. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit on the fence. For this one, though, again, Alutemu is still just going super wide. This is insane. Is this... Okay, so what does Batu have to do here, Lorinda, to fight back? Because at the moment, he does have Byrov, which in a roundabout way clears the board. In a very, very roundabout way. But with these 2 Librams of Hope in Alutemu's hand and the Liadrin, is there anything Batu can do to actually fight back here?
I mean, get a good first day of school, start getting something stuck, and that'll involve... He's got enough big minions. These minions aren't particularly menacing that Alutemu has down. And just stick something at the start of his turn, 1 turn. Land a couple of buffs, maybe draw some cards, and it can turn around. It's not like these 1 health minions are going to destroy you. Terrifying though it looks right now. You've got a lot of health to play with from Batu's side, so this can switch around.
Yeah, and there's the weird issue, right, where getting this Byrov is going to have to almost certainly be saved for when there's a broom, but it is kind of hard. Like, what's the play this turn? It looks like he's just going to get this Devout Pupil down.
Yeah. And this is kind of going back to what I was hoping would happen. He's now got 2 decent-sized minions down. And Alutemu doesn't have an easy way of getting rid of both of them, and that's going to spiral a little bit. It's going to allow Batu to maybe build on them next turn. Obviously, his current hand doesn't cater to that, but the deck's full of buffs. It could change very, very quickly.
Imagine we're going to see Alutemu actually coin Libram here, right? So he's got 2 choices.
Yeah.
He can Liadrin and use all the Librams, but if he Liadrins now, he doesn't get extra Librams of Hope. So he could have actually just had the big Divine Shield taunt and played a slightly slower game, but instead, he's choosing to actually have these Librams of Wisdom to start getting these trades away, and you can see very quickly this is still powerful, because now he can buff this up, it can die, he trades it off, gets them all back again, and he basically ends the turn with huge minions, even after all these trades.
Yeah. And this is a very finely trodden route between value and tempo that we talk about so much. He's given up a lot of value here, but look at the board he's going to get out of it in terms of tempo.
Right.
It might be unassailable no matter what your opponent can do to you.
There is a broom, though, for Batu, right? So he does have Byrov Broom, finally, to be able to just empty this board. He knows there's going to be a million Librams in hand, but that's the other thing as well. If your opponent has to, like, hero power, then put loads of Librams on it, that's so slow that it doesn't actually achieve too much as long as the game has been fairly equal up until this point.
But there's still the Byrov and the Broom, and I think this might be about the time to start going down that route, clear everything up, and say to Alutemu, that was your big push. Sure, you're going to have more big pushes because I've had to do stuff to get into this position, but now he can start to do nice things.
Wait, this spalling is huge.
Oh,
He uses the broom and just gets rid of, like, tons of the Librams, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that is
Just
insane!
Spot.
It always goes into the middle one, right? It has by far the most Librams on it.
You would think so, yeah.
Oh, it's so huge.
You've got bookworms. Sorry about that. They're just gone.
The funny thing now is how the trades happen afterwards.
Yeah.
Because if the 1-2 hits, there you go, yeah. He has to put the Divine Shield into it so it doesn't keep swapping his minions into the 1-2s anyway.
And okay, you asked me a moment ago, what does he have to do? This is him getting back into the game. You can see the hands, he's still behind. There's double hope in Alutemu's side. But it started for the first time. Batu's ahead on board at the end of his own turn.
Yeah, and the positive for Alutemu is he is still got all the value in the world in his hand, even if he lost all those Librams, because he still has 2 hopes. And most importantly now, I think he can like Libram of Justice with the Penflinger to clean this up and start pushing damage with this Liadrin, start piling on the pressure.
I like how that translates really badly in British English. He's got 2 hopes. Bob and none. But actually it turns out he has got 2 hopes. They're looking really good right now.
As long as you know what I meant, that's all that matters.
I knew what you meant, Raven.
Yeah. He doesn't like he's holding the Libram of Justice. I'm going to just start trading away instead. I guess this gives him targets for Libram of Hope to get the heal on the Liadrin. But interesting there that Alutemu at least seems to be okay taking a bit of a slower approach.
Yeah, he's not panicked. He's barely changed facial expression throughout the whole of this with the ups and downs that have been going on. And he has committed to just going wide rather than tall throughout the whole game. That's been a very noticeable game plan that he's employing.
And this is tough, right? The Libram of Hope can come down, but one of the benefits you have in this matchup, or in a lot of matchups, is when there's no little minions that stick around to just proc the Divine Shield so easily. But obviously with these air raids from Alutemu, oh great, he just puts the 1-1 in, puts the Penflinger in, whatever. There goes the shield instantly. Now we can see why he saved Libram of Justice, to be able to say, well, what's the big thing that my opponent can do to slow me down? Libram of Hope. Okay, Libram of Justice, boomf, it's gone. Next.
And this is one of the reasons that he's probably been avoiding going tall. He's been going wide for this reason, right? Because the Libram of Justice has not hurt any board that Alutemu's made all game particularly badly. And yeah, with Caster Vision, obviously it hasn't been in hand for Batu most of the game, but now it is. It's not going to matter because Alutemu's got this lovely set of 1-1s that he's using.
I know you've never really the big fan of Penflinger, but does this game at least convince you of it in this deck?
The problem is with Penflinger, so I don't hate the card. I can see how good it is, especially like you say, what it's just done here. But you never know if that had just been a River Croc on turn 2, how good it would have been, for instance. Like, would that 2-3 have just helped roll through? That sort of thing. That's what makes it hard. It uses a lot of mana for a very good effect. But you convinced me a bit, I think it was yesterday, when you said that Penflinger fills in the mana so you never waste any. And that's a convincing argument.
Let me think.
Yet again, though, now, because one of the brooms has been used up for Batu, it means that the broom Barov play just doesn't cut it, and now this 8/8's just sat there. Like, there's no way for him to actually proc this Divine Shield, and this is the opposite issue that I was talking about earlier. Alutemu had the 1-1s on board and the Penflinger to just hit the Divine Shield off and then do whatever with, but this Libram of Justice, okay, it's got 1 health and Divine Shield. Can you just tank 8? You might have to, but it's unfun.
Yeah, because he managed to get rid of some of the Librams, though, maybe he can tank 8 one time and not be too badly off. He probably will understand that the rest of his deck that is remaining from this point on will be a little bit stronger than the rest of Alutemu's deck because he's drawn slightly worse. And so if he can just hang in there and maybe take some damage along the way, maybe he can just turn the corner, but it is looking grim. This Penflinger's actually going to do good work in that regard.
Yeah, I think it's important to let this AoE take the shield and then try and clear the board for Alutemu without losing his 8-1. and then he can just go again, and it's just going to continue to create problems because he must now have a pretty good read that Batu with only one card in hand. One, it definitely isn't Broom because it was probably been used that turn, and two, it's just not something he wants to just chuck out. It's not a minion, almost certainly, right? Because he wouldn't have floated the mana, I imagine.
Yeah, I think he can work it out. Although last turn was tempting and it didn't happen, so we'll see. But it may also be that he just has to play his Libra because he's got nothing better to do at some point.
And look at this though as well, right? So you can just use the Libram on this, and now it still requires the Libram of Justice to be played from Batu to be able to kill it off, to reset it once again down to 1.
And he gets so many actions into that turn as well. That was a lot of stuff he did throughout that turn, and he got away with it.
And that just looks like a whole lot of nothing to me.
Yeah, that's a bunch of nothing, for sure.
And although this has looked quite one-sided, because, you've got to say Alutemu with having the Librams, getting the minion on 1, and also having Liadrin to help out, even with that spoiling from Batu, I think Alutemu's been ahead all game, but I think he's also just got the most out of his turns every single turn, right? Like, the amount of Librams he's cast, we need a counter somewhere, like a Libram counter for Paladin matchups, because he has cast a lot of Librams this game, and always just fully maximizing how much damage he can do, how big the minions can be, and how much pressure he can put on. And he is rewarded. Thumbs up from Alutemu. Game number 1 done and dusted. He's ever so closer to getting into that semi-final.
Yeah, and it looks good. Like, I know he got the hand, he got the start, and therefore should have won, and he did. But he just looked calm. He went through that turn where he played goodness knows how many Penflingers, goodness knows how many Librams, and he didn't look flustered. He just looks like, there's a quarterfinal. Yeah, I'm all right. I'll just chill and play them. And I always look at that in players, because when you speak to people who get to their first top 8, almost all of them, even though players who went on to be great players, say, yeah, I was scared. It's nerve-wracking. You're in front of a lot of people criticizing your plays and putting them on Twitter. Yeah, it's not fun. Well, it's fun, but it's scary. You don't want to make a mistake. And Alutemu has been here so many times now. He just went through that really complicated turn, making it look so trivial.
I also think it's one of the benefits and advantages that the Grandmasters have when Masters Tours are so close to a Grandmaster season, because Alutemu's recently been playing some high-pressure matches week in, week out, right? So going into a Grandmasters, again, this is, going into a Masters Tour, getting to top 8, these are high-pressure single-limb matches, but he's used to it. Whereas, for players such as Batu that we've not heard too much about, and plenty of other players in this Masters Tour, they're not competing on the same level week in, week out, right? They're playing in online cups, of course. They're playing ladder, but it's not quite the same as actual high-level top tournament play. So we'll see if it continues to pay off for him, and Alutemu can keep it cool as we move into game number 2. Batu on that Paladin once more, and Alutemu now going on the Warrior deck. And again, I'll stop being completely stupid and actually explain that this deck is not Bomb Warrior.
No, it is not, and I'm just trying to find exactly what it is, because I brought up the wrong Warrior deck. I've definitely caught a case of the Ravens, but yeah, he is playing... Okay, you're going to have to bail me here, because I don't know what on earth this is. Okay,
so yeah, it's effectively a version of Control Warrior to an extent. It's playing the Bulwark of Azeroth. It's playing, the Blades on a lot of removal in there, as well as Galakron. But it also has the Rattlegore for the late game, 2 Blood Boil Brutes, and the Bloodsworn Mercenaries, and the Cobalt Sticky Finger as well. So basically, it's more of one of those Outlast Warriors that can actually still deal a lot of damage with Galakron, with the Rattlegore sticking on the board, Deathwings, Blood Boil Brutes, etc. So it can fight for the board quite aggressively, but also it's it can play hyper defensive, because with the Bloodsworn Mercenaries, for example, instead of being aggressive with them, you could just use them to generate multiple Kargath Blade Fists or Kargath Primes to gain tons and tons of armor in the late game. So again, a very flexible deck, but not one we see get used too often, honestly.
Yeah, the Brutes in particular are what threw me. When you said, oh yeah, it's one of those. Oh yeah, so I looked down, it's Risky Skipper, yeah, I know what this is, this is Pain, and I see the Brute, yeah, it's Pain.
Nope.
Rattlegore, Galakron, hang on, what's happening here? And I just gave up. It's like, no, Raven knows what it is, I'm going to ask him.
And honestly, at some point, job for you at some point, maybe, Lorinda. I am interested to see how this version of Warrior does against Paladin, because although it has some of the same weaknesses, it also has a lot of different strengths too, right? It has the sticky finger for some steel, but also the Rattlegore is tough to deal with, and you've got to say that the Bulwark of Azeroth, if you get to the point where the Paladin's got some just really big minions, that Bulwark will buy the Warrior a ton of time.
Yeah, I also imagine that in some situations you can just kill your opponent really quickly. Like Blood Boil Brute into Bloodsworn Mercenary, games end quickly. I don't think that's the primary objective at all, but it's something that's always going to be there if you're not careful with the Paladin. So going wide makes a lot of sense to me as the Paladin here, just to get around some of the problems you described there. But then, of course, you might just get risky skipping and have all your stuff blown up. So really going to be tricky treading the line here.
First big choice here for Alutemu. Just drawing that Lord Barov means that, again, not the scariest board in the world, but if he so chose, he could just say, no, this is going away now. And like 3/5's gone, and the whole board's just got rid of within the next turn or so. Instead, I'm going to go for a bit of a boop and a Battle Rage here just to keep the cycle high. But already, look at these options. Kargath there, the Blood Boil Brutes there as well. There's a lot of removal available. And also, as you mentioned, a lot of the ability to actually gain tempo on board as the warrior, not just play a like an old school control warrior, right, where all you do is removal until the end of the game.
Yeah, it will be... Sometimes when it's just the Rattlegore, you have to force your way into the game. You have to force a turn for that to happen. But this is going to be a lot more natural. I'm going to say it's going to be trivial or anything, but this is just curving nicely into good minions and good stuff. He's not going to have to really, really like force his hand to work. And that's going to be good for him, obviously. That being said, he's facing down a lot of damage. He's already taken bits and pieces of damage. And obviously the Paladin does just keep attacking warriors. That's what Paladins have always done.
Yeah, this is where knowing the limits of the deck really help. And I think Alutemu can afford to throw a Brawl here. He doesn't have to, but for me, I think I'd take the 2 out of 3 that you just end up, removing this board effectively.
Yeah.
He's going to go for Kargath instead. This is going to force a trade in some respect. That Libram is a really nice pickup there for Batu. He can use it on the Loot Hoarder trade, gain the Libram as well as card draw back, and hold on his 5/7.
Yeah, this to me suggests that I think Alutemu actually wants to get that Kargath in the deck ready to be drawn on curve as quickly as possible. Maybe he realizes he needs a bit more health than we're giving it credit for, so if he can draw that and gain that 10 armor, it'll be a much more comfortable game for him.
I do love a good study session.
And Batu doing the thing you need to do against the Bladestorm. Just make sure you've got a keep on about it, but it's so nice to see 1 health, 5 health, 8 health, 6 health if you count Divine Shield, who cares? All totally different numbers representing different things you need to get rid of them.
Yeah, and it looks like we are going to see a Brawl now. He was hovering over the Barrow, but again, the Divine Shield, bit of a nightmare to mess around with, and maybe just thinks isn't worth it anyway, as it would kill off his own, but he can just go for this Ethereal Lackey, and Brawl gets, like, again, 50% chance that there's a really good outcome, 50% chance that there's a pretty bad outcome, but a more manageable outcome.
Yeah, you don't mind losing brawls to medium minions. It's just a thing that you sort of have to let happen in life as a warrior. Obviously, the 6/8 would be a disaster, but let's see where it ends up. He's gone for it.
Okay. And this is the problem when doing this kind of play versus Paladin, is leaving any okay minion alive leads into it being a not okay minion. Because look, the Libram's back. You can buff it. And there are more buffs where that came from as well. So plenty of stuff to go onto this 4/5, this Devout Pupil, to be able to continue to put the pressure on.
Yeah, and I love this first day at school. He realizes that after Brawl, the next things that happen is that Bladestorm. Like, that's kind of one of the reasons to Brawl. And so he's gone straight for the first day at school to try and just get that numbers I was talking about, these weird defensive totals that just make it so difficult.
I'm really surprised he played that 1/4 and not just the 1/3 instead.
And he's had to leave him up here. because the Divine Shield would potentially count as 1 for the Blade Storm. So this is put it on a different number, even though it looks like they're both on 6 health.
It's basically 4, 6, 7 at this point.
Right.
But this is nice again, just a not massive but awkward enough board that, again, there are more better outcomes than worse from Brawl for Batu. It's resilient of Blade Storm. It's ticking all the boxes.
Yeah, it really is. And it is getting tougher and tougher for Alutemu. We've seen that he had the chance to get some really good minions on curve, but he hasn't been given the chance to use them particularly well. There's plenty of reload available here.
There is, but this is the bit of wiggle room that Alutemu needs. Now he has an actual minion on board. Now he has the Barov, and again, it kind of hits for 4 next turn, with the ability, of course, of the Death Rattle. Maybe, just maybe, he can land the Krunks, or something a bit more powerful, maybe with a Blood Brute and Bloodsworn Mercenary. And he can actually get hold of this board, because he needs to buy just a turn where he's not under direct threat of taking more damage, so he can make these slightly slower plays, whether it's a Battle Rage or a Krunks.
Yeah, and although this can be dealt with and some board can be made, it's not going to be a menacing board whichever way he chooses to do it. I think he's wondering when to play the Broom here. Like, does he just want to trade the Broom in and then play some stuff, or does he actually want to trade in the McGurgle to try and pick up the Prime as quickly as possible, because he is running out of things quickly?
I think it's a bit of a shame, actually, that he didn't play the Aldor Attendant last turn and he played the other 1-drop, because he could have actually just done, like, Libram of Justice, killed the Barov, and just play Liadrin this turn. I think it would have been really good. And like I say, I'm not really sure why he played the 1-4 instead of the Aldor Attendant. I'm not sure what the benefit was. Obviously, it has more health, but I think just getting the reduction, making that Libram of Justice cost 0 there and then could have been more valuable.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think he just went that 1-4 is more than 1-3. And this is a choice that Alutemu made very early in the game to get this into his deck. It's going to pay off.
But here's another big question, right? Like, does he want to do it this turn, or can he hold off?
Because
if he holds off,
in my mind, I've already attacked in with it and done 10 damage to the 3/5.
Okay,
yeah.
And don't get me wrong, this is good. Like, I will never say this is a bad turn, but I wondered if he could have hold off and then attack in and then use the potential like Witchy Lackey to evolve it, depending on what he was going to go in.
Right.
Because it's also a great tool to actually kill off the Libram of Hope taunts.
Yep. I think the point is, though, that this way he might get 2 attacks in. We can see he won't because there's Barov and Librams and things going on over there. But in the Dream Looter's world, he gets 2 attacks in and gains 20 armor by doing it immediately and not evolving it with a Witchy Lackey. Much as I like the idea, if he attacks next turn and gets 10 damage in and then uses the Witchy Lackey, that's probably...
yeah, that's just... You probably just win.
So,
right?
Be super greedy. You've got a good hand, I think. I think that's okay.
Oh, did he...
If you're asking,
did
he have a chance
played the
to
2
save his
Librams
things?
first?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I was meaning, could he have just played the Librams on the McGurgle? Would that have actually given him more Librams in hand?
Yes. I want to say yes.
I don't know.
Actually, his hand is on 10. His hand's on 10. He's full. So.
Yeah. But I don't know if he had how many more Librams he had, but I think he could have just played the 2 he had in hand first on the McGurgle and gained more Librams in hand. Because either way, if he's going to Libram of Justice that turn anyway, he always will go to like 9 for the next draw if something doesn't die regardless. Interesting.
It's McGurgle. He's going to McGurgle in for 8. That's a lot of damage.
It's just undone all the work the Kargoth Prime did, right?
Yeah.
This might just have to be a winner brawl kind of moment here, like Evil Quartermaster, Armorsmith brawl.
Well,
or Evil Quartermaster Witchy Lackey, maybe, sure. Like whatever.
Yeah, I'm wondering, can he waste the Armorsmith? Like, usually I think that gaining armor from Armorsmiths is overrated. It's like, yeah, sure, it's great, but who cares? But this game, I feel that the Armorsmith might be key if he's going to win it. Pick up a risky skipper, gain some armor.
I think the problem with the armor is you're getting hit for 1 million every turn. So I feel like the armor actually, in a weird way, means less. Because if things are hitting you for 8 and 9 every turn, and you gain maybe 5, 6 armor from an armor smith once, well, okay, you're dead. I like this. I like just going wide. He got the Faceless Lackey, of course, which is huge. Just going wide and winning this brawl. And Alutemu does win it.
Yeah, that's the reasons you gave. Actually, why I don't normally think Armor Smith's that good, but on this occasion, because he's stalling out slowly but surely, it could be that Batu actually has to do it with 1/1s and little things. So 4 armor might be a lot.
Yeah, I guess, and this is where the game gets very strange as a matchup, and Paladin in general. And like I mentioned earlier, without access to Broom, it's pretty much play a minion, make it big, hope it doesn't die so it can attack next turn. If it dies, guess what? You play a minion, make it big, hope it doesn't die next turn, and so on. That's pretty much what the game plan is going forward.
Which is pretty close.
It is, but Blood Boil Brute and Evolve is looking pretty nice too.
Isn't it? Isn't it just?
He can... Oh, he can actually Bloodsworn Mercenary as well next turn.
Yes, he can. I'm just going to say yes this and yes that. Just keep saying things, Raven, so I can agree with them. It's great. Okay. It's making my life very
Raven is the best caster in the world.
I think my
I didn't think that one would work.
Down.
It's worth a try. It's worth a try.
So he's not messing around here. He's just loading up minions to try and get lethal next turn in advance.
Yeah, he doesn't look happy with something. Oh wait.
Could he have got them both out of brute range? I think is the main thing there. So if he put an extra one,
he could
on,
have.
That might be the issue.
Oh, also armor up shield slam, right?
Oh, and this as well. He's put them both to 5.
Yeah, effectively yes with the trade.
That
there's a couple of things there. Yeah.
But he's crazy to blame himself for that. Like the clock's ticking down. Just get those things played, and if it ends up wrong and you haven't factored in every single possibility, it's not as bad as not playing them. Yeah.
Yeah, it just feels bad because he could have just put 1 Libram on the Pride, right? Instead, he could just put 1 Libram on the Pride, and that becomes much harder to deal with.
And this is the punish, and he's acknowledging that, like with the nods. It's like this is what he was scared of, alongside the the blade. Obviously, he's just got 5 damage to each of those 2 things. It's just not perfect, as well as the Blade Storm thing.
My hand is too full.
Oh, burns a Libram. And you might think, well, he doesn't need the healing. Well, he would like a giant Divine Shield Taunt.
Yeah, he's blown through a lot. He's only got 6 cards left in his deck, and we've seen the good things, I think.
Become the hero.
And it looks like Alutemu is going to...
Wait, this is...
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a little bit surprised. Was this not just a Barrow? I guess he can do it this way.
This is a lot of stuff, Raven, yeah.
Well, it's a lot of stuff, but he could have done this first with the broom, right?
Right.
Could have Barrow broomed. Obviously, the turn looks slightly different, but he could have done that first, and then not needed the broom to give anything else rush, because the 8/8 would be dead.
Right.
That's the only thing I'm looking at right now. I think he could have just done Barrow broom. He's holding Barrow for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think maybe he just wants more with it, with the Penfling, honestly, at this point. Maybe he's just chosen to hold on to it. I think I've seen you do this, and I've definitely done it, where you get a blind spot, you say, I'm not playing this card until, and then it just sits in your hand the whole game.
Whoa, don't just throw my name out there, Lorinda, jeez.
Well, you know. That's the reason you only get to rank 2 Legend, Raven, not like rank 1 Legend.
Sure.
Actually, Gabby's the reason that nobody gets to rank 1 Legend, let's face it.
There's the concede, it's just too much damage.
Batu got it
Shield
done.
block, again, the Kronk's been just stuck in hand, not able to go down there, and not getting into that Galakron for anything like that. So, just some problems there. No Bulwark of Azanoth either for Alutemu to be able to, again, hold off for some more turns. That would have bought him a lot of time. But even with a couple of shaky moments there from Batu, he does get the job done with the Paladin. And again, I imagine that's how the matchup goes on average, because the Paladin seems to be doing well versus Bomb Warrior anyway, and a lot of the removal is similar. And the problem, like we saw quite clearly then, Alutemu wasn't doing the thing Bomb Warrior can do, was threatening the Paladin, right? There was no weapon swinging face, piling in the bombs, and so on. So it was a very defensive play and a game overall there. But it does mean both players are at 1-1. There's the Warrior and that Highlander Hunter for Alutemu, and then a slightly different kind of Warrior for Batu, and then Demon Hunter for him left as well. But a pretty close series overall, though. I do think Batu maybe just needs to take a breath there, because he's got some more pens he might need flinging in this game as well if he's switching to his Demon Hunter. He might just need to take just a second to refocus before he gets into this next game.
Yeah, I agree. Winning that game will obviously be a big part of that. If he had lost it, I'd be fearful for him blaming himself for the rest of the game, but I think he can be happy with that. I think Alutemu sort of showed us what that deck can do, and it did all the things it can do, and it still lost. So move on to the next one with your Demon Hunter if you're Batu, and this deck, which you can explain because it's got Hunter in it and only Hunter from Alutemu. Yeah,
so this is a very, very strange deck, and it's one that I'm not even going to say I'm a fan of, because I'm not. I probably prefer Face Hunter overall, but what this is really is a slightly less consistent Face Hunter, even though, as you can see, the curve is pretty much 1, 2, and 3 drops for the most part. There's barely anything past that. It's a slightly less consistent Face Hunter, but it's a Face Hunter that sometimes lets you play Zephyrus and Bran, which makes up for some of the inconsistency, because sometimes Zephyrus and Bran just win you the game, which is how Highlander decks work. So yeah, again, I'm personally not a huge fan of this list, but I do understand the mindset of saying I'll make this less consistent, but I have more blowout opportunity with those big power plays from the Highlander side.
One of the things with this list is, I mean, he's in the top 8, so I'm sure he's done fine, is you can't play test it on ladder. On ladder, you will beat people because you look like a Hunter deck until turn 5. And then you do and then you suddenly play a Zephyrus, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing?"
I have died to what I thought was Face Hunter up until about turn 6, and then Zephyrus came down, and I was like, "Oh, I'm just dead." So yeah, it can definitely happen. Whereas, of course, deck lists open, so Batu will be fully aware, of course, of what Alutemu's list is.
Yeah, so that's why I hope that Alutemu has tested it in private, not on ladder and such like, because it adds so many percentage points when your opponent is playing against the wrong deck.
I mean,
they're playing around the wrong secrets and so on.
It looks like testing's gone well in this tournament. It's Alutemu, of course, 8-1. So
just the 8-1, yeah.
It must have done something right, at least.
I mean, he plays really good Hearthstone. Imagine what he'd have scored if he hadn't brought Hunter. Might have been 11-1.
Somehow.
Anyway, he has brought Hunter, and Ace Hunter Kreen is a big deal here in what is going to be a tradey couple of turns.
A little bit awkward this turn, though.
So next turn, do you want to play Kreen and Crescent? So this turn you just do the other things?
What if... I'm going to throw one out there. What if it's Crescent and then either Freezing Trap or Hero Power this turn? Okay, yeah. Because then he has Kreen, Volpatinger, Ace Hunter. Sorry, I just said the same card twice. He has Ace Hunter, Kreen, Volpatinger, and then the swing of the Crescent as well. So then the Volpatingers are actually immune and get free damage in.
Gonna look pretty good. He'll be glad he hasn't got to worry about Paladin here, because the new broom sweeps Kreen.
How long have you been waiting on that one, Lauren?
Quite a while.
That was like a day one at a card announcement joke. And Lauren just sat on that all expansion.
I'm so sorry. But yeah, this is going to pay off for him. Look at this next turn. He's going to get the board, obviously, pretty strongly.
Oh, okay.
But he's really low on cards for now.
He is. But Scavengers is nice. He can still do Volpatinger, Kreen, trade into the 2-3, and then the 2 minions attack in.
Yeah.
It's pretty good to me. Still keeps that 1-maker isolated for the Freezing Trap. Protects the 5-4 as well. Everything looks great.
Ingenuity is pretty good because it will fetch the Stalker, which will then in turn fetch some secrets, so the card advantage isn't such a disaster as well. And no Blade Dance in the hand for Batu, so actually a real issue. This board will do a lot of damage in 2 or 3 turns.
It looks like he's actually going to isolate the Mana Feeder, and knowing that, again, now it will cost more and require a hero power. To be fair, probably is the right minion to stick, even though he could have killed the actual minion with more stats on board. This, if bounced, is actually by far the more difficult minion to replay the Batu. So I really like this from Alutemu.
Yeah, it reaches a point in Demon Hunter where this is just a river croc. In some matchups, obviously in some you're really desperate for that extra resources, but a 2-mana 2/3 that draws a card when you've got 7 cards and 2 skulls isn't something you want to be messing around with, especially when it costs 4. It's just gone. That'll never be played again.
This is rough, right?
Yeah.
He's going to kill the Volpatinger, and he's going to be able to kill off the Crane. Yeah, it's hard. Do you kill the 5/4 or do you kill the Crane?
You've got to think, am I ever attacking with minions again in this game? Like, what are you doing this game? You played your early minions, your Panthera's never coming back down, your Altruist will do a lot of work the turn you play it, so I think you kill off the big thing, yeah.
Makes sense. Does still take a ton of damage. I do like what he did there. It gives Alutemu more information, but by using the twin slice and not the second slices, he obviously puts that skull into coin skull position, or just skull, you know, like later on in the game anyway. Yeah, this is nice. Just having Phase Stalker hero power. Alutemu could go to draw more cards this turn, but honestly, he has a 4/5 in his hand.
Yeah,
even though it doesn't draw a secret, I just like playing the Yeti.
Play the Yeti, for sure. Your opponent last turn didn't Blade Dance your board away, so they're not going to do it this turn either. And then next
also,
turn...
Alutemu only has 1 Pack Tactics in the deck. The deck actually only runs 2 secrets. And obviously we just saw the Freezing Trap, so it is just Pack Tactics left.
So you don't want to draw it, is what you're saying. You'd rather go next turn... play your Stalker now, then next turn hero power, play the Reader, so you don't draw the Pack Tactics with the Reader this turn, because that would just be messy. And
yeah, that would be pretty unfun. And it's just a Yeti.
Yeah,
like that's it's so good. Other team are going to value the card draw, though.
I'm with you on this.
Again,
I think you've done enough damage that you just want to get the damage on the board.
Yeah. Again, though, we do have to remember, Alutemu is playing Highlander, and if he does draw into one of those big Highlander payoff cards, the Zephyrs or the Bran, that is huge for the game. Or if he draws into Dragonbane. He also does run a Frozen Shadow Weaver in this list as well. So there are a lot of good draws in his deck that arguably could be more impactful than a 4/5 right now.
Kind of, but also imagine that he played a Yeti and then next turn drew the Bran that he could actually play the turn after. Like, there's no hurry to draw your Bran. But yeah, there's a case for drawing your Dragonbane for sure. That's a very good argument. I agree with that. But
I think about it the other way though. If the Voracious Reader lives, you could draw potentially 6 cards, right, or 5 cards. I guess
it doesn't live. You know
turn,
he's got second slice. It never lives.
I guess then they're being used to kill this instead of a 4/5. I don't know. I think it's really close.
I think you draw 1 less card this way and risk drawing tactics, which would actually really slow you down. Plus, you put 3 less attack on the board. I'm sure he's got a good reason for it because he's very good, but I feel that one was incorrect.
Still, though, Batu put in a lot of his resources into clean up this board, and the problem is, again, this isn't a relatively slow Highlander Hunter. This isn't a relatively slow, clunky Highlander Hunter list where they're just going to drop a minion down every turn. This is the aggro Highlander Hunter, so a lot of the draws are some of those cheaper, more aggressive options. And again, our team is going to keep up the pressure, and again, we know that is Pack Tactics. And with the help of that Voracious Reader, he's rebuilding the board once again.
And maybe that Swampooze is the answer for the question that I'm trying to answer. Like, maybe he was looking for that Swampooze because he was expecting weapons last turn or something. Maybe he was panicking and felt he needed it immediately.
But that's it, though, right? is suddenly we've named like 4 cards that are really good to draw into for this turn, and he drew 2 cards from his deck. So
I got you, friend.
again, one of those cards then could have been tracking, so you can add more to that. I think it was fine. I think it's fine.
I mean, if Alutemu did it and he thought about it a long time, he didn't do it like in a panic or something, then it's probably good. Like that's unfortunately what I have
You
to go
would
back
think,
to. Just
Lorinda,
all
but
the
you got to be
logic I
careful
can
with
go
sentences like that after the seasons of GM we've seen, okay?
Yeah.
The assumptions cannot always be made, but here now for Batu, he does have that Aldraki Warblade, so there is healing potential. There is still Twin Slice and Second Slice in hand. Let's remember, earlier on in the game, he did generate an additional Twin Slice, which is where all these extra damages come from.
Yeah, time to do some healing.
But you said it earlier, Lorinda. No,
is.
yeah, you said it earlier. No Blade Dance, and also no Shard Shatter has really been a problem this game for him.
Yeah, the damage adds up. Like, it's been a while since we used hero powers much in Hearthstone outside of Demon Hunter, but the Hunter one is still really good at doing what it does. Just chipping away at 2 a turn. Like, it does give you that inevitability. And having the minions to back it up, you die fast against Hunters of all sorts.
So effectively going up to 14, but he is going to take an arguably additional 3. Is that just lethal?
I think it's 12? 13?
It's 13.
Any 14s anyway? Do I hear 14? I hear 13. I hear 12. Do I hear 14?
Yeah, it's 1 off. So he should definitely kill the weapon. It does mean that Dragonbane isn't as consistent if he holds it for next turn, which I think is reasonable.
Yeah, it's not fun, but I agree that even though it's not as consistent usually, your opponent has to clear this board and have stuff on, and the Dragonbane still has a chance of hitting. I think you hold it.
I like the weapon swing as well, if he does it. He plays more weapons in his deck, right? He plays Eaglehorn, Bow. He plays Desert Spear. I think the swing there was... I liked it, personally. Just
Yeah, because it's so
another
close.
card where you gain damage.
Yeah, I'm with you. If he draws a weapon next turn, he's just missed a point of damage. And I don't think that the ability is relevant anymore. I might be wrong on that, but it doesn't feel like it should be.
Oh, you know what? Oh, maybe I like this, actually. I've convinced myself, and well, really Alutemu's convinced, because if he plays Dragonbane, hits a minion, the Dragonbane kills a minion, then he gets to hero powered cleanly for 5, then yeah, okay. I could be convinced.
What's the minion you're thinking of, though? What is the specific
Shard
minion
Shatter,
where that works? Right? Okay.
Because that's the one that blows out most of his board this turn.
You got a
Shard
deal.
Shatter comes
I'm
down.
sold. Yeah. Clearing up what he can.
Yeah, I actually like it. It sets it. Not swinging sets up lethal in this weird world, right?
Yeah.
And no minion coming down.
But in the world where he played the Flinger there, for instance, then yes, it would have proved your point precisely. Whoa!
Absolutely huge there. Game number 3 going to Alutemu. Gets another win with this Highlander Hunter, and again, looking at... There were some moments there, it could have slipped away, but I do just think the AoE, that Blade Dance, the Aldraki Warblades, they just came a little bit too late for Batu, right? In literally the last 2 turns of the game. If he had them any earlier, especially with all those Twin Slice he was using up in the early game, he would have looked so much safer then. It wouldn't have been at least down to just sitting on 7 health and hoping for the best. So a little bit unfortunate there for Batu, but it does mean Alutemu only needs to get a win with this Control Warrior to take this series, and we were obviously informed earlier, wicked good stats as well. The Control Warrior has actually been the best performing deck across this Masters Tour, so pretty impressive. Maybe the sample size isn't the largest in the world, but it has been doing the best.
Yeah, and it's got good matchups here as well, going into this next game. I think he's in a great spot now to get through to the semi-finals. Remember, he's already made 1 final this year, right? So... Looks like a good hand as well. He can do things.
I'm no Control Warrior expert, but it should be pretty good versus Demon Hunter, I think. With the Corsair Cache here, Shield Block, might even keep that Ankar, because again, Ankar will draw that that sticky finger he has in the list.
I mean,
Sorry.
I like the reductionist way of looking at this, is that Demon Hunter's designed to do pretty much exactly 30 points of damage to you. Bit more with the flingers, bit more if he gets a board. Warrior kills your board, gains lots of armor, and goes way, way, way beyond 30 anythings. And so the Demon Hunter's got to not only do its natural swing at your face and hurt you damage, it's got to stick a board at some time on top against all of this removal.
Okay, so I'm going to have a quick check here. 2 risky skippers
Wait, is this
and the sticky finger. Okay. I was interested to see if whether it's correct to keep that risky skipper in hand, so his Ankar always draws the sticky fingers, because then there's only 2 pirates left in the deck.
I mean,
I'm not sure if that's going a bit overkill, but you're against Demon Hunter, so...
It's a good argument, but you've got such a good chance anyway with the 2 and 3. Plus, you've got 2 or 3 more turns to naturally draw it. That you take your chance, but it's an interesting point.
I guess my point is,
so good
with Ankar and Corsair Cash, what are you hoping that risky skipper turns into with the mulligan? That's going to help you out that much, right? I don't know. And again, I'm no specialist with this deck, but I think I would have liked to have kept the risky skipper there.
Penfling is going to be really important because this Bollock of Azinoth is so hard. Like, it just tells you can't 12 me with your weapon nonsense. You've got to do other damages.
Yeah, it is surprisingly infuriating to deal with the few times I've had to go up against it on ladder. Even if you have a hero power, say you're a rogue or a demon hunter, right? Easy damage proc. We can only do that once a turn. So it still takes like minimum 2 turns to get through, like most of the time anyway. Oh, he drew the second risky skipper. Alutemu, what a god.
Just generate arcane missiles and get rid of it that way is the answer. But yeah, he did draw into the skipper, and that of course means he will be able to get his removal in the sticky finger when required later on. I don't think he's in a hurry for it though.
He could swing and just coin it out, right? Looks sick to me.
Okay. It's a good board.
Because he has too many cards anyway. He doesn't want to equip Bulwark of Azanoth because if he steals a weapon, that'll overwrite it, so that's the last thing he wants. I think this looks great.
Okay, we've got 8 attack on board for next turn, sure. I'm so used to playing it as priest, I guess, where I try and hang on and hang on and hang on and make sure I hit the Eldraki. But yeah, just get the board as warrior. Why not? Why wouldn't you?
Yep, you can gain enough armor. Get hold of the board, remove the weapon, make Batu's turn a lot worse.
It's a lot worse. Well, oof.
Is he really going to have to just lapidary and trade? And then the lapidary is dead to any single point of damage and the weapon swing?
Yeah, he's still...
okay. Batu's decided. None of this trading rubbish. All going to the dome.
The oldest warrior play in the book coming up here, though. Shield block, shield slam, off you go. Everything's nice. So since the dawn of Hearthstone, this has been a thing. And you play the one you drew if you're trying to upset your opponent. You probably shouldn't do that normally because they might have a read that you played it, but hey, if you think it might upset your opponent, then do it, I guess. Or at least upset their thinking. You don't actually want to upset the person, obviously, just to be clear.
And this is a huge problem now. Batu pretty much just had his whole previous 2 turns negated. And now his hand does not look like it's going to shape up in the near future. He's very quickly getting to the point in Demon Hunter where you just need to rip Skull off the top to have any real plan in this game.
Yeah, I mean, what is the plan at the moment? Hope your sociologist sticks. Not a plan. Your opponent has 7 or 8 cards in hand.
Right. Well, honestly, I think the plan is just more and more damage to face. You just saw shield block, shield slam. The weapon's been stolen, so that's done and dusted. And your opponent is only on 21. It's not an insurmountable amount of health. So I do think the plan is still the same for Batu. We can just see, of course, it's different for us because we can just see, 1, Bulwark of Azeroth in hand. That adds 1,000,000 turns worth of health to Alutemu. Now he's drawn the Kargath Blade Fist as well to help out not only clearing the board, but step towards getting that Prime in the deck. And I wonder if this is ever like a weird, risky skipper Kargath turn, just to shuffle it in that turn quicker.
Yeah, sort of the thing we were talking about last game, where actually you just want to have the 8 mana Kargath gain 10 armor and you never lose the game. And in this particular game, that's even more important, I think.
And you can even see how confident Alutemu is health-wise. He could have done the Kargath thing to shuffle it in and try and get it sooner. He could have armored up with his hero power to gain 2 armor if he's that, worried about his health. Instead, he drew cards. Because if he draws enough cards, he's going to win the game through that power anyway.
I think he's going to swing here because he's looking at playing the Bulwark next turn anyway. So he's just looking whether do I want to do 4 to face or do I want to do the sad trade, 4 into the 1/3.
I like the sad trade, if that's what you want to call it, because it means, is Batu going to hero power this Kargath? Is he going to swing a weapon into it or anything? All of those things are great, because if a hero power goes into it, it means a weapon swing isn't going face that turn. And although he knows about this Penflinger, if a Penflinger goes down, you've got to sit and think for Alutemu, how many spells does he have? How many ways can he realistically keep bouncing this?
Yeah. And does he want to use them? Like, sometimes you don't want to use your spells, you're saving them for a rainy day. And plus, if he flings here, and it's probably something Alutemu had in mind, if he flings, he can't Sociologist. The card that Batu really wants to play now, he doesn't want to play because he wants to fling a pen.
There's also something that comes into play much less so in this scenario and much more so in Mage, is if he kills the Kargath, he gives Alutemu an additional draw to get to it. We normally talk about that in the instance of Solarian Prime, but if he kills it this turn, it basically gives Alutemu that extra turn to draw it. It's just a tricky situation no matter which way you look at it here from Batu, and it looks like he might be going for the simplest plan, which is often the best, of just Militia. I imagine he's going to put a Soul in and just say, you know what, I've got a decent sized board this turn.
Decent, but far from intimidating or terrifying. Just okay.
Well, now I just like the Galakrond.
Oh, really? Interesting. I don't want to give up my hero power, is my concern here.
But you gain a Krunks, and there is still Bulwark of Azeroth, right?
I mean, it's a tough one to argue with. I'm just in the mindset of, if I press this hero power button every time, they're never going to kill me. But if they draw a skull, then maybe that logic is flawed. I can see that.
I would say that logic is flawed, because the argument I guess I'll present is, if Priest hero powers every turn, they definitely die. Right? It doesn't work for Priest, just hero powering, right? So why would it work for Warrior? Is the way I would look at it, at least.
But let's say in this situation, Alutemu can go 3 or 4 more turns of hero powering and then get the extra 5 armor from the Galakrond. Yeah, maybe it gets enough to go beyond the 30.
This is a much less aggressive plan here from Alutemu, but as you can see, it looks like, oh great, well there's a charge gone. Okay, only 4 more to go, which currently is more than available for Batu next turn. So, because you've got to say, okay, there's 3 sources of damage next turn, he still has Bulwark for the turn after that. At least now, I would like to see the Galakrond just get it down.
Get it down, says the man. You know what? I'd like to wait 1 more turn. I want to get in the armor this turn and the armor the turn after.
See, now,
plus
if
I get
you want
to swing then.
I don't like the armor this turn, because if you're not playing Galakrond, then I think it has to be Blood Boil Brute, which means you aren't going to armor unless you swing in the Bulwark, which I also don't like. I think a plain Blood Boil Brute to get it on is also fine, but either way, I want Alutemu to put something on board here to try and make some plays. If he isn't going to Galakrond, of course.
He's going to. Yeah, he's sort of like me, and then your version of it is the version nagging away, which is actually there's just nothing better. I don't.
Well, there's nothing better, and also it gives you options of Krunk. So let's imagine Batu goes Skull off the top, and you go, oh no, and then gets the cheap 5 drops. You're like, oh, I'm in trouble. Oh wait, Krunk's AOE wipe next. That's the way. Oh.
And we're going to get to see it all in action because the
Yeah.
skull has been picked up, which means this decision now matters. We're going to find out one way or the other how it matters. But if the skull didn't get picked up, we'd never have any sort of discussion because it was just going to be an easy win. But now we're going to have a game of Hearthstone.
Oh, yeah, oh, you hate to
Oops.
see it. Wait for it. Is the third one going to be a fragment?
Wasn't me.
No, it's going to be a kid. That was one of the worst skulls I have ever seen. 2 fragment
was.
draws, which gives 2 natural mannered cards, and then the one that did get reduced was his 1 mana spell. Like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, so.
However, that's some sort of compensation. Let's not forget how much damage
Nope.
Artus can do, and unfortunately, there is a disconnect. Thankfully, for the last couple of years now, unless you've been living sort of in a cave or something, you'll know that it doesn't matter anymore like it used to. They will reconnect, and the game will carry on.
Now there is that Altruist with a lot of cheap spells now for Batu. Well, a lot of cheap cards, should I say. So, again, Alutemu isn't out of the woods yet, but now, oh, Skipper, Armor Smith, Blood Swan Mercenary.
Yeah.
Do what you want. That is 1 billion armor.
Does he need to do it now, though? Like, can he
He
just play a
definitely
Kronks?
doesn't. Yeah, he definitely doesn't need to do it now, but he could. What if he just plays Ralgor? What if he just shows off? What if he's just like, you know what?
Just
I
shows
feel
off.
that confident. Boom! Rah, the sort of noise it makes or whatever.
Yeah. Just show off. It's in the quarterfinals of a Masters Tour. No big deal.
Hey, if there's ever a time to do it, it's then, Lorinda. No one cares
Yeah,
if you showboat in round 1 of Swiss, right?
When you won UK's best gamer, did you showboat at the end?
No, the last game, I actually did the worst in out of everything, so no. I got absolutely dumped in the last game, but it wasn't enough to make me lose, so it's great.
Excellent. That's actually even
Yeah,
better.
it was literally the opposite. He does just go Ralgo. Yes! This is what I'm talking about, Alutemu.
I mean, this is some damage he's saving up in Batu's hand, though.
It is, but is it 20?
I'm not
what?
hopeful, but yeah. The
thing
okay,
is-
so
What I think you've got to remember as well is he has double Risky Skipper and effectively double Armor Smith and a Blood Boil Brute. So
yeah.
if Batu goes wide this turn, he can just match that, probably clear the whole board off, and gain a ton of armor. Like an absurd amount of armor.
Yeah, absolutely. Where I was going to go with that was going to be that it might be some surprise damage, but now it's all just out there on the table. I think that there's no way that this can go wrong now. Alutemu will
And
just clear it all up.
There was also the chance that if Batu didn't make a big push this turn, Alutemu could damage the Rattlegore and just copy it with the Blood Swan and set up lethal the turn after, right? So it actually accelerates the game on his end.
Well, this is the easiest Armor Smith nonsense turn
and it's
ever.
just Prime as well!
Made to
Yeah.
And this is it. Here's the nod. There's the gigantic Blood Swan Mercenary. A 0 mana Blood Boil Brute as well. Multiple Armor Smiths. All the health in the world. And again, this also just sets up lethal.
Yeah, it looks like batupaksoy's run is coming to an end in this tournament. But he's provided us with some pretty good Hearthstone, and hopefully we get to see more of him in future tournaments, assuming he doesn't somehow find a way to do 39 damage here.
That's it. And for me, for Batu, a player I don't know a lot about, but a player of which I hope that changes in the future. Right? I hope we get to see him more at Masters Tours and such, and put in some work. But for now, I think we are, maybe calling the game a bit early, but outside of the sheer amount of health, there's just a Kargas Prime. There's just a Kronks in hand for Alutemu, and we just saw the power of this deck. When it does get that card draw, it does get the pieces together to make those big defensive plays.
Absolutely. And he's going to fight on, I don't blame him. And there's many reasons to fight on here, not only the huge first prize, but just the airtime, getting comfortable on camera in case you have to do it again next year, those sort of things. But it is going to come down to... I made this comment yesterday, I'm going to repeat it because it's so good. We're going to have, no matter what happens in the last quarterfinal, which is 2 Europeans, all 4 major regions will be representing the semi-final. There's the European from the last game, there's Alutemu from APAC, there's XC from China, and there's Gabby from France.
Okay, that was all right. I was for a second wondering where you were going to go with this, Lorinda, because there were only so many options, but I like where you went. Good job.
And that looks like the end.
Yep. No way to get enough
disconnected.
damage. I don't think there's enough way. Now there's the shard shatter, the weapon, and a blade dance, but I don't think that realistically covers it. It's one of those moments where I know you're a fan of, Lorinda, where you wish Alutemu could just show Batu that he has Prime in hand. And it's like, okay, well, that's game. But as is, both players are continuing to just play out for the off chance. And like you said, it's almost certainly going to be the last game Batu's going to play today. Batu, sorry, is going to play today. So why not play it till the end?
We are getting, joking aside, this top 4, XC, Gabby, and Alutemu, is incredibly powerful so far.
It is magnificent, isn't it?
Really looking forward to seeing who takes this one down.
Now,
They're going to have earned it.
Prime?
Of course.
Boom. Nope.
Oh, I like
Alutemu,
it. I like
it
this
silly.
a lot. I think Alutemu could be rightly accused of having been a little bit sloppy in GMs this year. So in a situation here where he's completely won, he just checked himself to make sure he was doing the right thing. And that's what he needs to do if he's going to get himself back to his best.
Hey. Not a bad draw for Batu, but definitely don't think it's going to be the best. Going to play out the Mana Feeder Panther for an additional card draw, but there has to be something pretty huge if he wants to take down this Prime.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I'm just happy he checked himself, because ripping things off the top and playing them straight onto the board is not how you win tournaments later on in the day. It's not going to matter in this game what he did. He could have brawled and got away with it there, but going forward through this top 4, he's not going to be allowed to do that sort of thing. So that was good. And Batu, to be fair to him, has managed to set up a board.
He's not strictly dead. There is Evil Quartermaster for lethal, of course. The hero power, of course, only doing 3 damage. Blade Storm, Risky Skipper, Quartermaster, even in these final turns. Alutemu, keeping it clean.
Yep. Yeah, the sign of someone who has had a little chat with himself, all this, isn't it? Just very, very careful and considered.
Yeah, okay. I'm a Batu fan. Goes out in the most honourable fashion, throwing a pen at your own face. And we've all done it by accident before, but that was definitely on purpose. And Looters does it. There we go. I knew there was going to be a celebration. He booked his spot in the semi-finals there. So congratulations to Alutemu. Batu looked like he was doing pretty all right, honestly. And like I said, not seen too much of him in the past, but looks like he can be a contender going forward. But once again, huge congratulations to Alutemu there.
Yeah, absolutely. Just loading up this semi-final with a lot of the best players in the game. And I think Alutemu also with a point to prove, having had a very mediocre Grandmasters season. Just 1 slot left to fill there, Raven.
Yeah, and just take a look at these top 4, these top 3 or soon to be top 4. It's looking fantastic. And when you look at the 2 names we have left to play still, so JU and MM, that was I believe a rematch actually from earlier on. From yesterday, but JU was actually the player who did the best in Swiss as well. So even though these 2 might be names we've heard less of, definitely some more well-performing players. But I'm just excited, Lorinda. I think no matter what happens now, no matter who wins what, where, when, it's going to be just a fantastic semis and onwards, because we've just got some absolutely amazing Hearthstone players in this top cut.
Yeah, and JU in particular isn't an unknown quantity. He does quite well in the Battle Riff events, as well as doing okay in these events. I think he's got some pretty good record in the last 2 or 3 of these. So although he might look a little like outclassed just because of the sheer quality of people above him,
right?
Very interested to see if he can get through to this top 4 and what fight he can put up if he gets there.
Yeah, well, it's already been a pretty fantastic day worth of Hearthstone so far, and we've got plenty more coming up. So get ready for the final quarterfinal.